Hey everyone, my name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. If you like making money, if you like learning and reading and watching presentations on the most undervalued assets in the world, subscribe to the channel. And if you like this content, please give me a thumbs up and leave comments below for any questions or comments that you guys have about this content. This one's about lies. And I'm talking about government and Federal Reserve lies, and they have to lie. So I'm going to go in and show you what they lie about so you guys aren't blindsided when something comes in the future, inflation that is. I'm going to show you kind of how they do it. So I call this one lies. Liar. So I put in here the Fed lies, and it has to lie. So I've heard some people use Federal Reserve Chairman or Yellen as a source of evidence. And Yellen's the head of the Treasury. And you can't do that, because they have to lie in order to print more money. They're not going to tell you the truth. The system needs more money in order to survive. It will default in a deflation if they don't continue to inflate. And when these money systems generate so much debt, and when you struggle to pay off that debt because the debt becomes so large in relationship to your assets, they're going to have to continue to inflate. And it's designed that way. All of these currency systems end up failing at some point. All these man-made currency systems. History has shown that government defaults through inflation and not deflation. So the majority, almost all of them, default through inflation. So you're going to see a inflationary default. That's why you're starting to see Michael Burry and some of these other guys and girls start saying, hey, look, we're probably going to see hyperinflation at some point. The moment of when and if, it's not a question of if, it's just a question of when. And I don't know the exact timing of this. I don't think anyone does, but it could be sooner than what most people think. So inflation, I'm going to give you the old definition. It's to expand the money supply. The new definition, and this is ways that they can manipulate, is they changed the definition to read as such. Inflation is the rate of increase in prices over a given period of time, because they can manipulate prices. They can't manipulate if the money supply expands or not. So what they did over the years is I've got the consumer inflation here. This is the official versus shadow stats 1980 based calculation. The 1980 based calculation is in the blue. We would be having inflation at an average since 2001 to be around 8 to 10%. That's kind of where that is. This is where they say the inflation's at, because they have a bunch of things that are indexed to inflation that they have to pay on. So obviously it's in their best interests to understate inflation. This is the consumer inflation, official versus shadow stats, on the 1990 based alternate, because they keep changing the way that they calculate these numbers. And if you notice, each time they change it, it gets lower and lower, because the 1980 base would be 5%. You start using their new one, and now it's only 1.7%. The Chapwood Index is another index that tracks inflation. I just took the top 10 large cities to show you their inflation rate is 12%, 12%. I'll do the average here. Average 5 years, 11, 11, 11, 9, 11, 8, 9, 12, 9, 13%. So it's about 10, 11%. And that jives with the 1980 based calculation of about, 10%. So that makes sense very closely to the 1980 based inflation rate. This is the annual US money supply growth. The supply growth, if you're looking at maybe 10% here of M3 official here, where is this? M2, here's M2. So M2 has been around 10%, maybe a little bit less here. All of a sudden, just recently in 2020, from COVID, we've gone through the roof here. It's M1 is here, and then we've got M2. And I think M2 is going to follow up this way quite dramatically because we do have an expansionary phase of real estate. I think that the majority of money gets loaned into existence and in the hands of people through an expansion phase of real estate. So I do think a lot of this money is going to get into the hands of people and increased into M2 money supply. In the inflation adjustments, I wanted to touch on this and show you how they do whatever they want with prices. There's hedonic quality adjustments. It refers to a method of adjusting prices whenever the characteristics of the products included in the CPI change due to innovation or the introduction of completely new products. So they just get to adjust it whenever they want. Hey, look, this looks like it has higher quality. This one's got better innovation. We'll just discount it by 30%, even though the price went up 10%. The substitution bias causes inflation rate calculated using a fixed basket of goods over time to overstate the true rise in the cost of living because it does not take into account that people can substitute away from goods whose prices rise disproportionately. They do substitutions and they say, hey, look, if this person was eating steak, now they're eating ground beef because that's what they would have chosen because the price of steak went up too much. So they do hedonic adjustments, they do substitutions, they do all these things in the consumer price index, essentially making the CPI value absolutely worthless. So this is from Investopedia, just to let you know. For several years, there have been controversy about whether the CPI overstates or understates inflation, how it is measured, and whether it is an appropriate proxy for inflation. Over the years, the methodology used to calculate the CPI has undergone numerous revisions. Some critics view that the methodological changes and the switch from a cost of goods index, COGI, to a cost of living index is as purposeful manipulation that allows the U.S. government to report a lower CPI. There are three different definitions of the CPI. Since these definitions are not operationally equivalent, each method of measuring inflation leads to different results. Why do they do this? Inflation puts a tax on you through devalued currency. So the currency itself, through devaluation, is a hidden tax. It also bumps more money into higher tax brackets. So not only are they stealing value through the currency itself, they're literally taking more from you as it bumps you into higher tax brackets, that inflation. It taxes you more on real estate when it inflates real estate higher. They are getting desperate from high debt loads. So this is looking forward. They're going to look at more ways to tax you. You are just a tax unit. That's how they view you. What to do? If they're manipulating all this stuff, if inflation's going to get out of control, what the heck do you do? And my viewpoint has always been get out of the system. Don't use dollars. Get out of it. I like precious metals, especially physical precious metals, and the two that I like are platinum and silver. And again, these physical metals are very tough to tax if you hold them outside of the system. They don't know that you own them, and they don't have a good way of taxing something. I don't know if they're going to come to your house and start shaving things off your metal. Most people don't own it. So it's if you're out of the system and you own this stuff, very, very few people own it. So more than likely, they're not going to do anything with it. And platinum and silver, to some extent, they're not going to be confiscated. They're more considered industrial metals. I think that they both have monetary aspects to them. And then you've got gold, which is the monetary metal. That has a lot higher likelihood of being confiscated. I don't think they're going to confiscate anything, but it has a higher likelihood if something is going to be confiscated. So that's why I prefer platinum and silver. Plus, they are cheap on a historical basis, platinum and silver, that is, to the other metals. So you're going to see more and more people go after silver and platinum for various reasons because they are so cheap, for investment standpoints and from industrial uses that people get to choose between certain metals. So be careful. This is they're going to tax you. They're going to get you every which way they can through inflation, through taxes, whatever it may be. Be cognizant of that. I mean, think about it. Think about how you're investing. Think about the accounts you're using. Maybe you prefer a Roth IRA over a regular IRA. Maybe you put money in tax shielded things. Maybe you go physical versus some of the other investments. I mean, figure it out. Just make sure that you're thinking about taxes on the backside. If you guys like this content, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Don't know what you're waiting for. Leave comments below if you guys have any sort of comments. And thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.